The cyclical nature of real estate and this evolving investor pressure needs to focus on what can I do in the near term that will drive long-term value. And for us, that means deconstructing these 5, 10, even 25-year goals into bite-sized pieces that are near-term investment opportunities. And what they're really asking is, what do I do with all this data and information while I am actively operating, investing in and or divesting of real assets?
Hello, and welcome to this special episode of the REIT Report, part of our 2025 Building Resilience series, which is covering the ways in which the commercial real estate industry is focused on investing for the long term. Through this 3-episode mini-series throughout the year, we'll discuss with industry experts some of the challenges facing communities across the country and how REITs are part of the solutions driving opportunities for economic growth today and in the future. I'm Jessica Long, Nareit's SVP for Environmental Stewardship and Sustainability. This episode is part of our second series where we will discuss how capital improvements in buildings and infrastructure are addressing the increasing physical risk facing the built environment. During our first series, we unpacked how buildings and building owners are assessing climate-related risks and identifying opportunities to improve resilience of buildings and communities in the face of increasing frequency and severity of natural disasters, but also the challenges in quantifying the benefits. While there is increasing consensus on the need for resilience, challenges remain with quantifying its financial benefits, getting resilience projects from initial risk assessments to a designed and planned improvement project. Today, I'm excited to have Deb Cloutier, President and founder of REIT and Chief Sustainability Officer at Legence. Deb has met more than 30 years of experience in the commercial real estate, energy efficiency, sustainability arenas. She's providing strategy and guidance to clients and employing market-based strategies to enhance financial and environmental performance. Deb has been integral in the design and implementation of EPA's Energy Star program and has recently expanded her role to also become the Chief Sustainability Officer at Legence, where she guides sustainability efforts among the legion of Legence companies, inspiring and leading craftspeople and clients to integrate sustainability as standard business practice. Welcome, Deb. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thanks, Jessica. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me join your conversation.
Yeah, your bio speaks for itself. You're one of those people in our industry, I think, that needs no introduction to most of our listeners. But I really am excited to have this conversation with you as we talk about how real estate companies are really on the leading edge of addressing climate-related issues, both in making buildings more energy efficient as well as building resilience and adapting to increasing climate risk. So I just wanted to start out by giving you the opportunity to give a little background on what it is that you've been working on and a little background on Legence. I mentioned that in your bio, a really exciting program that I think that it would be great to explain to our listeners what it is and what drove Blackstone to start a program like this.
Thanks so much, Jessica. To start off with, Legence is a provider of engineering, consulting, installation, and maintenance services for mission-critical systems and buildings. And it's interesting because it's the first of its kind platform where Blackstone really wanted to accelerate the adoption of decarbonization in the built environment. And they chose Legence to scale these proven solutions and our ability to drive both carbon and cost reductions at speed and at scale, which I personally have been in this industry for over 3 decades now. And I think that's what is missing is we have a lot of the know-how, the technology, the ability to analyze data and identify opportunities, but it is doing it at speed and at scale, and we need it more so than ever. So Legence really specializes in designing and fabricating and installing these complex HVAC and MEP systems, which enhances energy efficiency. It improves the reliability of the systems and the uptime of the equipment. it extends its useful life, and it bakes sustainability into both new and existing facilities. So we're real proud over the last 5 years to have built this platform up to be over 2 billion in annual revenue. We've done a lot of aggressive acquisition with Blackstone's support. And now we're over 5,700 employees with 1,200 engineers and consultants and over 3,000 craftspeople and technicians. And we're able to really service now so much of the most technically demanding sectors. And we count over 60% of NASDAQ's 100 index among our clients.
Wow, that's incredible. And that idea of getting the work done and building this coalition of companies that can really do it. And I wanted to hone in on something that you said about this availability of data and the ability to do the analysis, right? Like we've come so far and it's hard to believe that we went from where this was data being tracked in spreadsheets, very off the cuff analysis being done to make the case around kind of energy management, energy efficiency to where we are now. However, I think some of the key challenges still remain. And so, like that dynamic between the abundance of data and the ability to get the work done.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say that two persistent gaps that I've observed in the marketplace, why I started on my journey in sustainability or sort of this intersection of sustainability and commercial real estate is strategic alignment and data fragmentation, right? Sustainability objectives or in the early days, trying to get folks to adopt strategic energy management, but these objectives were often aspirational and super disconnected from like underwriting and asset level planning. And basically, organizations lacked a roadmap and an understanding of how improving building performance can both preserve and create value. And then the data fragmentation was a bigger barrier before. Programs like EPA's Energy Star and many of the proliferation of software solutions in our industry have helped. But when you have the problem where energy, financial, and operational data all live in separate systems, and as you said, often in spreadsheets, it limits the ability for the organization to prioritize and measure results. And so, in data management into a core business function or business processes through strategy and execution and measurement, right? We've observed that is the kind of linchpin to the success of any program. And so, if you want to capitalize on your opportunities, if you want to meet growing compliance and regulation requirements or reporting requirements, you have to provide the C suite with reliable data that you have high confidence in. So when you're making decisions, it's backed up by data driven decision making.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. And when I think about how I started in sustainability, it was very operational driven, right? I was working on lead operation, existing buildings operations projects and working with property managers on embedding sustainability in our building portfolio. And then my job just slowly started shifting towards data management and reporting. And I felt more and more disconnected from the buildings and really the nuts and bolts of building sustainability in the built environment. And I feel like we are reaching that full circle point now where we're getting back to, okay, all of this analysis is great. How are you going to get projects done? How are you actually going to add value and address the sustainability goals and objectives that have been set? So I guess just what are you seeing in that space? How are you seeing projects getting approved? What are the challenges and how is the approach that you're taking with the work that you're doing at Legence and REIT helping to get those projects approved and completed and out the door?
I completely agree with your point about coming full circle. And I take it almost a step further in that at REIT, we are really refining our focus in helping our clients understand the why behind our recommendations. So most of our clients have net zero goals or very aggressive carbon reduction ambitions or improving the resiliency of their operations. But the cyclical nature of real estate and this evolving investor pressure needs to focus on what can I do in the near term that will drive long-term value. And for us, that means deconstructing these 5, 10, even 25-year goals into bite-sized pieces that are near-term investment opportunities. And what they're really asking is, what do I do with all this data and information while I am actively operating, investing in and or divesting of real assets? And so if we look across our brand promise at Legence, it's built different, built better, built for what's next. And we are really trying to operate at that level of the trusted end to end partner, simplifying this journey from strategy to implementation to ongoing operations. And so, with our technicians and craft people, with our engineers and consultants, what we're doing is our teams are trying to deliver actionable decarbonization roadmaps that are backed by technical engineering expertise and building science, but also smart financial structures. And that can take a lot of different flavors. For example, we're helping our clients through utility incentives, grants, rebates, tax credits to secure more than 300 million in funding in the last 12 months. And we're regularly advising clients on structuring of on-site renewable energy projects, right? To meet their objectives. Do they want to own it? Do they want to develop it? Do they just want a cash flow stream from it? And so understanding the specifics of real estate, commercial real estate, helps support the strategy and the recommendations and the pragmatic approaches to getting things done. So I think we're trying to take this holistic approach because we think it does eliminate handoffs. We think that it provides price certainty and it helps to reduce risk from going from I've identified opportunities to I want to implement them. And that's the like brand promise, if you will, that we are trying to help our clients with. And we're meeting it with a lot of success, just taking a ROI backed like solutions with or without subsidies, because I think energy efficiency paid before always has and it always will. Right? There's just something about energy efficiency to me has always been the big rock in the jar to reduce operating costs, to increase NOI, to decarbonize or reduce your emissions, and to make your buildings more resilient.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that idea of breaking it into bite sized pieces, even though the long term goals and the long term value is always the kind of prize, really pulling back and saying, what am I recommending as a sustainability leader walking into the executive's office and saying, what am I asking for? And I always say, not here to save the world through real estate. I'm here to advise smart decisions for the company. And I can't tell you how many times I've been asked to like boil it down to three things. And I think that it feels like there's just so much that needs to be done. And especially, again, taking it back to that resilience and transition risk and physical risk when we're addressing climate within the built environment. And I think it always comes back to energy efficiency, right? We've done such a great job building and making the case for energy efficiency. It's core business. As I said, when I started my journey into sustainability, energy efficiency was already embedded in the engineering and property management functions that I was involved in. And so the journey into a sustainability career really grew from that essential function of energy management, energy efficiency. So just how do you think about that tie between energy efficiency and resilience? And of course, it being just so essential in buildings specifically.
I think efficiency is the foundation of resilience. When buildings are optimized mechanically and digitally, they're better equipped to handle disruptions, to reduce the load on the grid, to maintain uptime during extreme conditions. And they're then going to be able to deliver the risk adjusted returns that are expected out of commercial assets. So, whether you're a data center, precision manufacturing site, or critical research like life sciences facilities, it's not just about saving energy, it's about ensuring uptime, operations, or resiliency. And as a proof point, at Legence now, we've designed more than 10 million square feet of net zero buildings and more than 140 megawatts of distributed generation. And so folks are often asking us, like, what's the playbook? And I think one thing that we're super proud of is there's a new resource that was just published, an ASHRAE guide called the Strategic Decarbonization Planning Guide. published in concert between ASHRAE and the USGBC. But we're proud because our very own Kent Peterson led the working group that developed this guide. And I think it really reflects how we approach decarbonization planning, so that if you haven't already, I highly recommend you check it out. It's a new resource. It was designed specifically for the commercial real estate industry. And the guide represents this critical inflection point that we see in the REIT industry as we face both urgent climate mandates and evolving federal incentive landscape. So, with renewable energy incentives from the Inflation Reduction Act being phased down, I think REITs are no longer able to rely solely on external subsidies to drive their decarbonization strategies. What I think makes this guide transformative is this shift from traditional energy audits to strategic capital planning, right? And that's an embedded function within any REIT. So instead of chasing those quick payback measures, it helps REITs integrate decarbonization into the existing capital expenditure cycle, really turning what many view as a cost center into a strategic value driver. And I think the other point that makes it really useful and digestible is it's a financial framework relevant to REITs because it allows the REITs to align their investment timeframes and help justify investments that might not pencil out right in that typical 3 to 5 year window, or maybe 2 to 3 year window, depending on your REIT. And it shows how you can create substantial value over the asset lifecycle. And it provides this standardized set of tools and common language that I think is crucial for the investors, the lenders, even the regulators to learn more about demanding kind of comparable metrics for decarbonization. And the last thing I'll say about it is it takes, I think, a really pragmatic or practical approach because let's face it, not all buildings built today, 80% of all buildings that will exist in 2050, they already exist today. They were not designed to become net zero. And so we have to take an incremental approach to electrifying them or to reducing their emissions. And so this lays out a good, better, best approach and shows you the immediate, we call it no regrets moves that can right size equipment during natural replacement cycles, meaning I was already going to replace this piece of equipment. So that is an inflection point that we should leverage to reduce the cost or improve the tenant comfort or enable smaller, less expensive equipment later. And so it's that kind of stepping through that we hope that the REIT industry looks to and starts to kind of adopt. But it all comes back to energy efficiency as the starting point.
That's really exciting, and I had not seen this new guide yet, but I'll definitely check it out and really think about it as a new resource. It's so exciting to see the tools and resources that are available. Again, thinking about all of the efforts that have gone in by our friends and folks in the industry to really build up this knowledge, share knowledge, right? Nareit, getting involved with Nareit and Better Buildings and other key places where we brought the industry together and shared these best practices have resulted in these amazing tools that now everybody has access to. The large, well-capitalized owners of real estate, large REITs, have all contributed to this industry knowledge and sharing that now is available to all building owners and real estate community stakeholders to implement these strategies.
One other thing when we're talking about new resources or new programs like Better Buildings or Energy Star, which have been around for decades and have been wildly helpful in transforming our industry, there's another one that maybe folks don't know about yet. Do you mind if I talk about it? It's the MEP 2040 Challenge. So what it is a challenge like the Better Buildings Challenge, but it is to all systems engineers, and it asks them to advocate for and achieve net zero carbon in their projects. So operational carbon by 2030 and embodied carbon by 2040. And what I love about this is it's engaging yet another super critical component of our industry, which is our MEP engineering design engineers, right? Because they're the ones that are basically designing and speccing the systems that are going in these buildings, whether they're new or are massive retrofits or end at useful life. And I'm proud because Legence is a signatory to this, and we've been actively engaged in helping guide the initiative. And one of our folks, Rob Bolin, was just elected as the chair of the newly formed MEP 2040 Advisory Committee. But what's interesting is this group they have several working groups, and they're shaping discussions on things like refrigerant impacts, embodied carbon accounting of MEP systems, and whole life carbon decision making, things that need to be brought into the design discussions with the owners and with the architects. And so there's a beginner's guide to MEP embodied carbon, which was just published birthday, April of this year. And we're actively working on several more case studies that'll be part of the next version of the guide and really corresponding to like their building data set. Cause I think that's part of it is sharing lessons learned, tools, case studies, and just broadening the MEP community collectively to design better the way that we know that systems can be designed now, and just pulling that forward into more like everyday retrofits and renovations, as well as the shiny new Class A CBD buildings that our biggest and best, brightest are working on.
Yeah, no, that's so exciting. And I think you're so right about, again, just expanding that community and almost welcoming that community to the sustainability conversation, because again, I think that's the original energy management, right?
You
These
got it.
MEP systems designers and operators, that's who was doing this before there was this sustainability focus. This is who was thinking about energy always has
Agreed.
this is, and so how do we utilize that? And I think so many times, again, just how I say, I'm saying, what our goals should be. I'm tracking the data, but I don't have the expertise to say you got to set it up this way and design it this way. But there are some brilliant engineering folks out there that really understand how buildings operate. And that's what getting back to, there's more, a building is more than a financial asset in a spreadsheet. It is a living, breathing structure that has a lot going on, and being able to actually impact the way that buildings operate takes the people with that knowledge.
You said something that really sparked a thought for me, which if you think about it, this transition to a low carbon economy is something that humankind has never done before. And so if the vast majority of our buildings already exist today, what we have is a technical challenge. We need to have a lot more engineers and designers thinking about how to retrofit existing building systems. And that has not necessarily been the driver up to this point. There are many talented folks that are capable of looking at the way buildings design intent was and coming in and helping commission it, which is super important, or retro commissioning it. But to change out the systems, the lifeblood, the cardiovascular system, if you will, of a building is a very complicated thing. And as an industry, we're short on talented, capable engineers. And so I think that's something that I'm really excited about, that MEP 2040 challenge, and just basically inspiring the next set of our engineers and consultants and designers to be able to contribute new solutions to this.
100%. I think that just really drawing attention and really building up those opportunities in building trades is so necessary. I know, again, one of the things as we talk theoretically about transition and decarbonization, it comes up all the time that there's actually not enough people with these skills to get all the work done that needs to be done to meet the goals. So, how realistic is your goal if that labor and that knowledge and the expertise and skills is not out there to actually get the work done?
That's exactly why we have, for 5 years, through Blackstone sponsorship, been gathering up and collecting companies into this Legence portfolio, because you can't have enough trained craftspeople and engineers and designers to do this work.
When I heard about the work that was being done and getting this program started, I was so excited to know that we had amazing real estate leaders working on this and really thinking about how to move this work forward in a real way. In that vein, like, what are you seeing? What are the most common projects being prioritized? What are the things that you're really seeing accelerating in this moment with your clients and within the portfolios that you're supporting?
We're seeing a pragmatic shift, I would say. Clients still care about their carbon goals, but they are prioritizing action that aligns with resilience, cost savings, and long term asset value. And the priorities we're delivering on include modernizing outdated HVAC and control systems, electrification of heating and hot water systems, on-site solar, storage, and smart demand response, and healthy building strategies, quality, thermal comfort, occupant wellness, right? With energy volatility and climate events increasing, clients want infrastructure they can count on. And there's also a new layer of scrutiny. Projects have to hold up even if these policy incentives change. And I think that's where an integrated partner model gives clients confidence to move forward. But it is a bit distracting right now with the uncertainty that is going on with changes in the Inflation Reduction Act, which we were all really excited about, or the 179D tax credit, or can I take advantage of the transferability of my tax credits to my solar providers? There's so many moving parts right now. Or what's the safe harbor clause for my construction starts and when it's considered completion by IRS rules? There's so much going on right now, but I think we're seeing a lot of our savvy clients just doubling down on, we know these are good projects with good ROIs and we need to get them done. And the sooner we do them, the sooner we really are starting to affect that kind of decarbonization curve and the capital stacks that need to be applied in order to reach those net zero goals. So most folks are trying to avoid the purchase of offsets and RECs right now. We're just seeing a decrease in that. Fundamentally, it doesn't necessarily deliver on a change in your performance. It's more of an accounting approach to achieving your reduction goals. So that's what we're seeing is a shift to pragmatic approaches.
And I think that goes to the theme that we've been talking about, coming full circle to where it's back to core business. What are the things that you can do in your portfolio that are going to add value that are also aligned with sustainability goals and outcomes that you're seeking to achieve? And I think that there is this ability to get things done that is not tied to a government incentive or mandate, that is not tied to achieving a score or a rating, that is really just tied to the building, the business, and what it is that you can do to have a better building. Always loved that term. So again, I think we started out by talking about we're making the case, we have the data, but what are the challenges that you see the most in the work that you're doing as far as where do real estate companies really need the most support to get these things done?
Commercial real estate leaders are facing increasing pressure, which is ironic to say because haven't they always been facing tons of pressure? I mean, you've got investors, insurers, regulators, tenants, right? And they're all demanding many things of you. And there's an element of delivering on sustainability. And I think the execution gap is real. I'm often asked, should we focus on with regards to resilience? Is it lifting and shifting our current strategy? Is it innovation that we need to lean into? Is it a technology play? And my opinion is it's all of the above. You need to continue with this imperative that we have with climate emergency that we currently face. And there will continue to be new technologies, but I think that the thing that needs to be overcome right now is addressing the need for innovative approaches and this integrating into the capital planning process. So for me, this energy efficiency or strategic energy management adoption has always been around like, what's the standard process that exists in the business today to do due diligence and acquire a building or develop its pro forma or to do its like operations and property leasing and management of the building or to decide how to dispose of the building. It's take whatever the standard process is, make the fewest changes necessary to it, and find those inflection points where you can affect the greatest change toward your sustainability or decarbonization goals. And for me, that's the capital planning process, right? We already have 5-year CapEx plans for these buildings. When you buy a new building, you got a 100-day plan and you've put into the pro forma some investments that you think you need to make. It's like somehow getting the asset managers and the fund managers to fundamentally see investments in sustainability and resilience as another type of way to maximize investment in the building. And so it's use the data, prioritize your opportunities based on either emissions or total assets under management or value of the building, and then use that to prioritize your opportunities and engage practitioners that can actually help you find the technical solutions that pencil and then structure it in a way like you would any other good investment. And so I think that execution gap is what we're seeing. And Like the common issues are a lack of site-specific portfolio-wide decarbonization plans, uncertainty around ROI and sequencing, like the trust issue is real. If you aren't working with a trusted provider, you're probably going to change the weighting of how likely you think this is to get the results you said. And there is a shortage of those trusted providers out there who can execute across the finish line. And again, not to sound like an infomercial, but that is really what Legence is being built to do, is to bridge that strategy delivery to goals and measurable outcomes. And like, we know you buildings can't go offline for the most part, and you can't have cost overruns. And you have to there's so many things you have to do exquisitely well. And so I don't envy asset managers in buildings or property managers because they're really hard jobs. It's a lot to juggle.
Yeah. No, and thinking about the trusted provider idea really connects back to me of what we were talking about, that engineering community, right? Because there are mechanical engineers, building operating engineers. They have their trusted folks, and really making sure that they're part of it. And we're not bringing in outside groups that don't even understand the building. I can't tell you how many times we've had an energy audit come in and the building engineer reads it and says, this isn't even accurate to how the building operates, and really making sure that those in-house resources, those people that know the building best, are really contributing and helping to build that plan and build the team that will then execute on a project.
Yep, pilots are always good, right? It's good to pilot a technology or a retrofit in one asset before you look to try and do like a portfolio-wide or campaign technology-specific retrofit.
Yes, for sure. The pilot is key. And then lastly, just getting back to this idea of the embedding in the investment process, the focus on sustainability in capital planning. You talked about how building a capital plan is already core business. And I always use this example of like Turkish lobby tile, right? There's no cost too high for the stone in the lobby, because there's this proven value that you're uplifting the experience when you walk in the lobby, and you're going to get that lobby renovation is going to get approved. How do you see that shift now to where sustainability projects are now being elevated to that lobby tile position, where seeing these climate related impacts firsthand, like sustainability, be top of mind for the financial community? How have you seen that changing the approach to capital planning in real estate?
I think it comes full circle back to the beginning of the conversation, which is climate risk is now a financial risk. Owners are seeing the real cost of doing nothing, whether it's downtime from wildfires, flooding, skyrocketing energy bills during heat waves, or insurance premiums outpacing your pro forma models. Even if Washington continues to pull back on climate policy, I think the market continues to move forward. There was a recent 2025 US Business Sustainability Outlook survey of 400 corporate executives. Nearly 90% of executives maintained or increased their business sustainability investments this year. And they really reflect this clear understanding that sustainability improves supply chain performance, it reduces long-term risk, it creates competitive advantages. So while policy shifts, it creates short-term uncertainty. But I think companies that we see are prioritizing sustainable business practices are really positioning themselves to outperform those that don't. And they're choosing and investing in resilience. And if you think about, there's so many stakeholders now involved in your climate risk exposure. There's insurers and investors and lenders, and factoring all that in and tying resiliency and efficiency directly to asset value and risk mitigation. Look at some of the analysis and studies, whether it's by NACRE or others that look at climate prediction models, economic impact on different regions. Miami alone has invested hundreds of millions, if not billions at this point, in trying to do mitigation strategies, right? So the streets don't flood every other month during a king tide, because that's bad for business, right? So I think this is like the thought that sustainability is optional, or whether we can compete with Turkish tile. I don't know. But what I know is that you can protect your NOI, you can stay insured, and you can ensure long-term competitiveness so that there's a prospective buyer for your building when you are ready to sell it. And I think it helps. All the studies show it, increasing your tenant leasing velocity, garnering higher rents, upgrading to the next tenant class, if you will. There's so many things around thinking through the risk associated with buying new buildings and when you're going to dispose of and how. So I just think all of this is about making your infrastructure and your buildings future ready to perform in this very changing world that we live in today and will continue to live in for a long time, hopefully.
Yeah, and continue having these conversations. It's been amazing having you here. I look forward to continuing to work with you. And I know that a lot of the sustainability leaders in our industry are very appreciative of the work you've done over your career and that you continue to do in your role at Legence and RETech and in the industry as a whole.
Thank you so very much, Jessica. It's a delight. Thanks for having me. Wonderful conversation today, and I look forward to lots more of it.
And if you enjoyed this discussion and would like to hear more about what's happening across the REIT industry, you can subscribe to the REIT Report or leave a review wherever you access your podcasts. If you're interested in learning more about REIT sustainability, check out nareit.com/sustainability, where we highlight efforts across the REIT industry to deliver strategic value through sustainability in the built environment.